So there's a subject that I'm sure people talk about, a topic people talk about, that's known as WRS. And that's short for Weird Romantic Shipping. And I know some people might say, well, that's a topic and a subject I've never heard of. Well, believe it or not, it does exist. It's just not talked about a lot. But there are various examples out there, various categories, if you will. One category is incense, and under it is the subcategory known as kissing cousins or kissing siblings. And today I saw a Sabersparks review, like all of you probably did, on Regue Chicken, that's R-E-G-U-E, Chicken, a Colombian animated feature film telenovela. And basically the romantic plot of this involved our two main protagonists, Violet and Gabriel. But the reason I bring this up, while talking about, the category of incense and the subcategory of kissing cousins and kissing siblings when it comes to real romantic shipping, is due to the fact that Gabriel and Violet fall under, both the main category and the subcategory. Because basically in the film, we find out that Gabriel's mom has divorced his father and has married, somebody else, who's our main antagonist. And the main antagonist that she marries is now becomes Gabriel's stepfather. But what we find out is Violet has an uncle, and that uncle just happens to be Gabriel's stepfather. So yeah, that's basically why people like Saber are not too thrilled with the romantic plot being, or involving, I should say, two individuals that are technically family, even if they're not by blood. And I can understand where he's coming from. I can understand where others are coming from as well. But when you really think about it, though, in real life, this is a fact. This kind of stuff does happen. Maybe not as often, but it does happen to where, you could have, you could have somebody that's, the daughter, of the daughter of a mom who marries a guy and everything, and that guy becomes a stepfather, and then his son, believe it or not, becomes basically like the step sibling. But because they're not related to blood, they're not related by blood, I should say, there's always a good chance that they would end up together. There's nothing really stopping them, if you will, as crazy as that sounds. Same with the scenario here. There are people that will get married, and whatever child they have, they become the step, parent of that child, and then whatever other family they might have, like a niece or a nephew, become the step cousin. And basically, legally, there's not really much, that could stop them. Let's say the female cousin getting together with the stepson of her uncle or her aunt or whatever. There's nothing that says they can't be together because they're not technically related. They're not related, they're not related in any way, shape or form. And that's a fact. It'd be like if my dad, and I'm not going to say any more than this, it'd be like if my dad married somebody else and she has a daughter and everything that's about my age, and the daughter's single, there's nothing that says me and the daughter can get together because we're not related by blood. This kind of stuff does happen in real life across the world, believe it or not, as wrong as it might be in the eyes of a lot of people, or how indifferent it might be in the eyes of many people. And it is basically a lot of people would look at it as being a weird romance, or weird romantic shipping, because technically it's incense, but because technically it falls under the category of incense, and by default, or by connection, it falls under the subcategory of kissing cousins or kissing siblings, or whatever you want to call it. Now, as crazy as that sounds, there's another kind of real romantic category as well, another real romantic shipping category as well, and that's known as self-love. But why do I bring this up? Well, as I've mentioned, I did a video on this and I showed gameplay of it. I I have started to play Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart thanks to PlayStation Plus, which, by the way, I still plan to get the physical copy. I still plan to do that. But, I started playing it. And I could see basically where some people are coming from. Because even though I haven't gotten to Rivet's part of the game yet, I'm close to it, I believe. I do believe I am close to it. Basically, long story short, if you watch some of the cutscenes, of the game that people put up here on YouTube, they basically compile them together into a movie. If you look at the cutscenes, if you will, pretty much everybody is indicated. In fact, some people have even titled the videos of Rivet has a crush on Ratchet or Ratchet has a crush on Rivet. Because basically to them, when they finally do meet up, they give off those vibes of, they know they're each other's counterparts, but, from other dimensions, but they can't deny that there's an attraction to them. I mean, and they go through all the scenarios you would expect a potential romantic couple to go through in the story. I mean, they even have their argument, which they correctly do diffuse afterwards when they both realize that, hey, they shouldn't be angry with each other because, because what's going on. They shouldn't, take out each other's aggressions on each other because of, hey, I get where you're coming from now. I get where you're coming. They go through that. They go through that typical, trope and everything as well. And then, of course, the ending pretty much hints at, hey, they're going to stay together as a team for a bit. And, that could lead to and that could lead, I should say, to any other possibilities. So, so when people look at that, even though some would say it makes a lot of sense for that to happen, despite the fact in previous games Ratchet has had a love interest or is seen to have another love interest, people would put this, in the subject or in the file, in the file folder of weird romantic shippings and under the category of self-love. Because basically, under the category of self-love, in the subcategory of basically counterpart love, a subcategory of the counterpart love, if you will, that's technically where Ratchet and, Rivet would fall. And it would make sense because basically Rivet would be falling for herself, even though it's a male counterpart of herself with a different name in Ratchet. And the same could be said for Ratchet. He'd be falling for a female counterpart of himself, with a different name of Rivet. And it could fall under that category, like I said, of self-love, and the subcategory, of, counterpart love or cross-dimensional love, if you will, because that's what it would be, because they're from different dimensions. And honestly, this is one of those kind of ships, one of those weird romantic ships that falls under those different categories and subcategories that fans would want to see Sony in Atomic Games, if you will, make a reality. They would like to see Rivet and Ratchet together. Just based on the fact that, hey, you're cliffhanging us, with more adventures with all four of them. Both Rivet, Ratchet, Clank, and Kit. You're basically teasing us with more romantic adventures. But would it happen? Would it actually happen? We're not really sure. But, again, these are just things that I bring up a lot. I mean, if you really want a good example of self-love and cross-dimensional lovers, I mean, look no further than Rick and Morty. And look what they did with the female character there, the mother, I think, of Morty, if you will. I think that's who it was. Take a look what they did there. You basically had her, meet up with her counterpart, or not counterpart, but with her other self, her clone, if you will. And essentially they had incestual love, if you will. They had self-love, if you will. And I don't know if they showed anything, but they did indicate it happened. We'll put it that way. But and that too, I should say, and that too could fall under the topic and subject and file folder of weird romantic shippings. The thing is, weird romantic shippings in media is always going to be a thing. You know, internationally, here in North America, U.S., Canada, if you will, you know, it's always going to be a thing. It's been a thing in the past. It's been a thing. It's a thing now, and it's going to be a thing in the future. No matter how you feel about it, it's always going to be something that gets relied upon and utilized in some capacity. Even if you feel like it doesn't make sense or it shouldn't be there, it's always going to be there. End of discussion. End of story. But what do you guys think? What do you think about these weird romantic shippings that occur in these kind of, stories, comics, animation, to an extent live action, fanfics? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know down below in the comments as well as the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.